Very excited about our topic. We did this webinar last, I would say about 10, 12 days ago in Spanish, and it was one of our highest attended webinars, so we hope you'll find it just as useful. So today's webinar is building a world-class sales team, and I'm going to have Diana supporting me with the questions on the other end here. So as we get started, I just want to get you all familiar with the GoToWebinar control panel. If you take a look at that, which should be on the right-hand side of your screen once you log in, you will be able to find the webinar handout. So if you go to the handout section, you're going to see that the presentation that we're sharing with you today is immediately available for you to download in PDF format. Therefore, you will not have to wait in the future to get the presentation. You can leave this webinar with the presentation in hand. Also, you will see a section in the GoToWebinar control panel to ask questions. Because we have so many people attending, it doesn't make sense to open the microphones. So we ask that you please ask your questions through the GoToWebinar control panel, and we will be answering them as they come about. If there's a question that we feel is best addressed later during the presentation or after we're concluded, that's what we're going to do. But we promise you every question will be answered. And finally, we ask you to engage with us during this session as much as possible. The more interactive that you make the conversation, the more meaningful the conversation will be for you. So we're going to start here with the PowerPoint presentation. I just want a confirmation from you guys that everybody can see it. You can either write that in the questions. Diana, you'll be my first test, so please confirm that you can see the presentation.
Yes.
Okay, super. So now that you can see it, and if at any point we had a problem last time where the presentation went off and I didn't realize it, so please let us know if we have that technical issue. Diana, feel free to interrupt me throughout the presentation if that happens. So we're going to start today's discussion with what are the key factors to creating a world-class sales team, right? What are the things that we need to take into account? And I'm sure if any of you are in sales, you're going to say 5, there's about 50. Well, certainly, we agree with that. There's a lot of things that you can do. But we want to focus on 5 that we believe have the most impact in you making that jump from a good sales organization to a great sales organization. And the number one topic is knowledge. How knowledgeable is your sales force about the products that you sell? Are they certified? Are they fully vested into these products? And this is important because if not, you're going to see that some of your salespeople are going to sell more of one product than they do of others. And that's primarily because those are the products that they know better. So you want to make sure that your whole portfolio is properly represented. And the way to do that is making sure that your salespeople are knowledgeable in products. Your offers, you know, what things that you have in the market right now that your customers can benefit from. Any triggers that can help accelerate sales. You know, how knowledgeable are your salespeople about these offers? And finally, and most importantly, processes. You know, most organizations are trying to build an exceptional sales force by providing them with methodologies to sell more effectively, to become more of a trusted advisor to their customers. So how are these processes known? And you know, how well are your people trained and how well do they understand it to deliver on them consistently? So knowledge is the one thing that we want to make sure that you have across your sales organization. We also want to make sure you have the right people. You know, I see it way too many times. Somebody that was great at customer service ends up in sales, or a great engineer ends up in sales. And that's great if they are fit for purpose, meaning they have the competencies that you're looking for. They meet the criteria that you want in an exceptional salesperson. Because remember, every engagement counts. Every opportunity to prospect counts. And if you're not delivering the best of your business, you're probably leaving money on the table. And that's what we want to walk away from. We want to make sure that we can pick every dollar that we have an opportunity to winning. So make sure you have the right talent. And by the way, I'm going to speak about the right talent and some key characteristics for both a good sales leader and a good sales professional. So more on that in the following slides. Number 3, empowerment. You know, what is the level of freedom that your sales organization has to act? You know, sometimes they need to respond quickly. They need to respond effectively. And I'm talking about addressing objections. I'm talking about addressing, you know, requests for discount. You know, we want to make sure that your people are empowered to act effectively, swiftly, and with the confidence that they require, not withholding or notwithstanding any governance issues. You know, making sure that obviously they're not making crazy decisions. You have to have the right governance in place, but you want to make sure that your sales organization is empowered, because when they're empowered, they're more confident. And believe me, there's nothing more effective in a salesperson than them being confident. By the way, not to be confused with aggressive. We're talking about confidence here, about mastery, about understanding what you sell, why you sell it, how it benefits your buyer. The fourth item we want to discuss here is real-time information. You know, do your salespeople have the information that they need at their fingertips to make quick, accurate decisions? What about your sales leaders? Do they have that information to know who's being more active out there as a sales exec, who's being more productive, who's generating more leads, who's converting more leads, who's closing more deals, you know, who's really making breakthroughs out there? And you want to make sure that you have this information in real time. That's going to be important for you to create this world-class sales organization. And finally, but not less important, is leadership. Do we have somebody that, you know, has a clear vision, hopefully an inspiring one at that, one that has purpose, that everybody's on board with? Is this leadership team providing guidance? Are they giving them the blueprint for your sales executives to succeed? What about motivation? How are we helping the salespeople, you know, maintain the level of enthusiasm and engagement and drive that we want them to be, so they can be at their peak performance stage? Is that happening? And again, what about coaching? You know, yeah, guidance is about setting that blueprint, but coaching is more about saying, hey, this is what you're not doing right, and this is what you're doing great. Keep doing what you're doing great, because this is going to be very important to your success, but let's focus a little bit on these things that we need to improve, whether it be negotiation skills, whether it be, you know, more knowledge on your process, whether it be, you know, handling objections more effectively, whatever that may be. You want to make sure that you have it. And I assure you, if you close that knowledge gap, if you have the right talent, if this talent is confident and empowered and has the right information to act swiftly and accurately and make great decisions, and they have this leadership, you're going to have a great sales organization. You're going to have an exceptional sales organization. And that's why we find these 5 factors to be crucial in creating this world-class sales team. So let's get a little bit more into, you know, the nitty-gritty, right? The devil is in the details. So, you know, let's discuss this in more depth. So number 1 is, you know, sales leadership. If we're going to be implementing these best practices to develop a world-class sales team, what are we looking for in sales leadership? And this is a real conversation, especially in Latin America, where leaders are primarily relying on sales metrics and timelines. Hey, this is your sales quota. Hey, this is the quarter, so you need to hit it. You know, and all the coaching and guiding and leadership and motivation is around those 2 elements, time and quantity. That conversation needs to shift, because not every salesperson is the same or acts the same. And we found that highly effective sales leaders apply coaching methods that are individualized to each team member. And more importantly, they're able to recognize the strengths and weaknesses of those team members, so they can help them, you know, maximize and leverage those strengths, while also building up the skills that they need to mitigate those weaknesses. And they do this in a way that motivates them to unlock their potential, and they serve to also inspire others to do better. So this is what we're looking for. This is that secret sauce. Do we have a sales leader that is being individual in their attention to helping each team member? You know, there is that Pareto rule, right? 80-20. So most people will find that their sales organizations sell between 60 to 80% of their sales goals. And they'll find that about 20% of the people are actually the one making the biggest contribution to achieving those goals. Well, imagine the potential if you can get that out of everybody. Okay? So this is going to be important. So you want to make sure you do this and that you do it in a way that others catch on and they see what you're doing with their peers, and they're also inspired to be better because they see how you as a leader are driving that organization and how you're individualizing and humanizing your coaching to each one of your team members. So that's going to be really important. And remember, you will find people that are coachable and you'll find people that are not coachable. And these are the things that you need to look at when you are selecting the people that you want to have in your team, right? So sometimes coaching leads to a decision that's, maybe replacing the individual. But most of the time, coaching leads to them becoming better. And that really, as a leader, is our best contribution. How do we help others be better? Nothing inspires, a leader more than that aspect of their work. And so with that said and that vision laid out, what are the traits? What are the characteristics of a great sales leader? So let's talk a little bit about those so that when we start profiling and saying, are these the guys or gals that we want in our organization, leading our sales organization, that we're actually making sure they possess some of these traits. So number one, this leader needs to be able to clearly articulate a vision and team purpose. Your sales team needs to know where you are and where you're heading. What is the benefit of reaching that destination? And more importantly, what is the purpose? How is this making me better? How is this making the company better? How is this making my greater community better? Because at the end of the day, nothing inspires people more than knowing that they are making a difference. And they'll only know what difference they're making when they have a clear purpose. So you want a sales leader that can articulate this vision and provide this purpose to your sales organization. You also want to make sure that that individualized attention that I spoke about before is not, prejudicial to some. You would say, oh, my favorite is the guy that's selling the most. Well, yeah, in a way they are because they're delivering on the responsibilities. But the reality is that there is no favorite. What you're looking for is you want a consistent sales organization. When you have 6 out of 10 people reaching their goal, that speaks as much of you as a leader as it speaks of them as individual contributors. So you want to make sure you surround yourself with 100% of the right people. And sometimes it takes time. You have somebody, they're great, but then you have other people, they're not great. They're not delivering the output. So you need to take a look at that, be clear about it, and then make the changes on a timely manner. I know for sure one of my key mistakes as a sales leader was waiting too long to make certain decisions that I knew I had to be making. So you want to make sure that you're doing this on a consistent basis. I'm giving everyone individualized attention, and I'm showing no favoritism. Everybody's equal here. We're all part of the family, but we're all moving towards this common goal. And you want to also, as a great sales leader, manage not only the quantitative objectives and the metrics, which we know you probably do very well, but also the qualitative metrics. Are you certified in the products that you're taking? Have you taken the latest training? Have you taken an assessment to see where you are on the different skills that are expected of you? So make sure that you're building up on the quality of the effort that is being put into sales, because that's where a lot of organizations fail. They have these people that are aggressive and they're confident and they know their product, but these are not necessarily great human beings. They're not portraying the professionalism that you want. So how do you manage that? How do you factor that into the equation? Because this is going to have an impact on your sales. So you want to make sure you're looking at that as well. Next, you want to make sure that as a great sales leader, you provide the necessary tools. How do I empower? I empower through knowledge and through guidance and through coaching and through motivation. That's what's going to build up the level of confidence for you to feel empowered. So in that sense, I need to make sure I'm giving you the proper training, but I'm also giving you continuous learning opportunities. Just because you took that certification last year doesn't mean that there's nothing else for you to know about those products. You know, products evolve just like people evolve. So there has to be continuous learning. There also have to be the tools for self-appraisal. You know, a sales exec should know what and you know, and when they're not doing things right. It shouldn't come from their leader. They should already know that when their leader comes to them, they're just reinforcing what they already know. Okay, this allows for much better team management. So you want to give them the tools to know, hey, how am I doing? You know, you need to have clearly outlined objectives. It's not just the quantitative, but it's also the qualitative. And you need to make sure that they have the tools to assess them. And you want, of course, track those key metrics. You know, whether it be number of visits, number of prospecting calls, number of generated leads, number of converted leads, number of closed deal versus target, effectiveness rate of your opportunities versus your closed deals. All those metrics are important. But make sure that they can manage those metrics themselves, that they're not just coming from you, because that will create a lack of transparency. And salespeople really, really don't like that. So it's something that you need to take into account. Be a source of unconditional support. You know, if you want your people to have your back, you also have to have their back. So offer them unconditional support and encourage them to be the best that they can be. This is your primary role, making sure that everybody in your organization knows that you're there for them. How do you need me? When do you need me? I'm there. Okay? Sometimes we make the mistake of, you know, micromanaging, and that could be a bad thing, but make sure you are not detached and unengaged, because that's even more dangerous. So be that source of support and encouragement. And coach according to the needs of each team member. Far too many times I see that people are, you know, coaching somebody on a particular topic, and then they feel that's the same thing they need to be coaching everybody else on. And that takes away that individualization that we're looking for. You want to make sure that you're coaching to each person on an individualized manner based on what their strengths and their weaknesses are, and that you're doing that with a preset frequency. You know, we're going to be doing these coaching sessions. Obviously, we can't do this every day, but we'll do it at least once a week because we know you need a little bit more of my attention. For other people, it may be once a month. And the topics, the relevance are going to be different. They're going to be according to the strengths and weaknesses of each individual. As a great leader, you want to promote collaboration, and you want to value collective intelligence. That is lacking in a lot of sales organizations. It's like the Lone Ranger. Everybody's selling on their own. No. What are your best salespeople doing that is working for them, that is getting them more deals, and how am I translating that to the rest of the organization? You know, what are the great ideas that are being thrown out there, and how do we engage others to, you know, weigh in on those ideas? So you want to make sure that the intelligence of your team is as good as everybody's intelligence and not an individual's intelligence. So that's what we call collective intelligence. Make that information, that piece of knowledge, that best practice, that idea to the benefit of everyone, and make sure that everybody that does provide them are recognized for making those contributions. And finally, you want to recognize individual and team achievements on a timely manner. You know that John already hit his target today. Don't wait till the end of the month to congratulate him. Make a big deal about it now. Nothing encourages others more than seeing that somebody else is being, you know, recognized, that giving them that pat in the back, because everybody else wants the same thing. And this has been over-researched. Salespeople appreciate almost more than money recognition. That's how they're built. That's what we want to do. That's what we want to give them. So these are some of the traits of a great sales leader. It's giving you information that you can look at and say, what am I doing right? What can I do better? And if you're actually at a senior executive level, you know, how do I choose a great next sales leader for my organization? So as we carry on, I'm just checking here for questions, and yeah, no questions so far, so I'll continue. And as we continue to discuss best practices for creating this great sales organization, this world-class sales organization, the next thing we want to look at is the alignment between strategy, processes, and metrics. Okay, so we've talked about leadership. Well, what about making sure that that vision that should be outlined in a strategy is broken down by initiative and that there is a process to ensure that you are doing the things that you have to do to achieve them, and furthermore, that you have the tools to gauge adherence to those processes, and more importantly, the output, which is measured in metrics. So you need to be able to align this. You need to make sure this is all working, you know, as a virtuous cycle. Okay, that one thing, one item, you know, feeds to the next, and so on. And I'm going to show you a graph on that in our next slide. But this is very important, and this is a key role within the sales organization. If my strategy is heading in one direction and my processes are heading in another, we are not going to achieve the outcomes that we're expecting. So we want to make sure that people, processes, and the technology and the tools are all linked in. So each sales strategy must embrace the initiatives, the processes, milestones, and metrics necessary to achieve their ultimate objective. Therefore, to foster an execution culture, every aspect of this process must have specific owners, clear metrics, and consistent communication. Okay, you want to be able to foster a transparent environment where everybody knows what they're accountable to and in what time they should be delivering on that. And if you complement that with great leadership, I can assure you, you're going to make tremendous strides in bringing your sales organization to that next level. So let's look at this alignment a little bit deeper. And this is what we want to show you. You know, you have this strategy. That strategy now could be, I want to increase sales for X product by 10%. I want to be able to expand my sales presence in these new territories. Okay, these are strategies. Well, what are the initiatives to support those strategies? If you want to increase 10% of sales, what are the specific action items at a tactical level that you'll be executing? Okay, so you need to be able to define those and assign ownership to those. And then you need to be able to break down the process. In order for us to be successful selling this new product for which we want to grow 10%, these are the things that our salespeople need to do consistently. Okay, and that gets further complemented by the metrics. You know, now that they are doing it, how can I validate that they're following those processes and that the output is what I want? And once I see that, I want to immediately recognize the people that are doing a great job. I want them to, you know that we care, that we value it, and that we make a big fuss about it. Because we sure as hell make a big fuss when things don't go right. So we should make a bigger fuss when things go great or they go good. Because these are the green shoots that everybody else is looking at to see if they're on board into that same, framework. So you want to make sure that you're looking at this. Evaluate. Nothing's perfect. You know, we do things here and we feel that they're great, and then we do them again and they weren't as great. So we need to evaluate, what did we do right? What did we do wrong? And as a result of that, we improve on that. You know, so what are the things that we need to improve? And we rebuild that back into the strategy and back through that flow. Always taking into account that you're looking at reaching a target. And that's what's at the center of all this. All these steps that you're taking in this process are looking at achieving a specific goal. And that's what we're trying to illustrate here. So if you run your sales organization with this framework in mind, I can assure you you're going to see some enormous improvements in the way that your team sells, in the quality of the selling process, in the metrics, in your best practice distribution, and fostering that collaborative environment, and in driving an environment that your people can be proud of. So that's definitely what we're hoping we can help you achieve. Okay, so as we move forward, we're going to talk about the third most valuable aspect here, and that's your talent. Don't be fooled. I hear a lot of big talk. I hear a lot of strategy. I hear a lot of intellectual ideas and philosophies. But, guys, at the end of the day, if you don't have the right people, you're not going anywhere. So talent is your most important asset. Choose great people, retain great people, you'll achieve great results. And we believe that the best sales leaders have an knack for identifying, hiring, and retaining the best talent available. And I promise you, if you seek extraordinary results, the way to get there is to hire and retain extraordinary talent. And that just doesn't mean hire them and pat them in the back often. That means you're going to mentor them, you're going to train them, and you're going to have a vested interest in their personal development. So these are the things that you're looking for. These are the things that you want, because these people, trust me, it's happened to me. These people will not leave you. If they feel recognized and valued and that they're growing within the organization and that their bosses have their backs, they will stay with you. I'm sure you've all heard that most people don't leave a job, they leave their boss. And that's why it's very important that you have the right talent also at the leadership level. So identify people whose skills and values are compatible with the culture, the strategy, the products, and the processes that your organization is seeking. You know, these are the things that you have to look at. A great salesperson for a transactional business deal is not a great salesperson necessarily in a consultative sales deal. Okay, so you want to make sure that you are going through the filter of, is this person right for a culture? Is this person right to help us deliver on our strategy? Is this person right for the products that they're going to sell? And is this person right with the processes that we expect them to follow? Okay, this is really, really important. This is going to be half the battle. Otherwise, upskilling these people is going to take you a lot longer, and the process is going to be a lot more painful. Okay, so now let's talk about this talent. We talked about leadership talent. Now let's talk about the sales talent. You know, what are the characteristics? What are the traits of a great sales professional? Well, number one, they have to have a presence. And by that, I don't mean they have to be good looking, you know, anything like that. I'm saying when they walk into a room, they have to have a presence. People need to know they're there. When they speak, they command attention. When they present a product, they persuade you. They're influencing the way you think. They're adding value. So you want to make sure that these people have a presence. You want to make sure they're very, very strong at their interpersonal skills, at building chemistry, empathy with their potential customers. That's going to be absolutely crucial. People like to do business with people that they like. Okay, what about curiosity? I want them to want to learn about their customers. You know, most salespeople are very good at talking, but not very good at listening, which is one of the things that we're going to talk about. But if you're not curious, you're not going to be interested. Therefore, you're not going to be a good listener. So I want somebody that's curious about my customer, what my customer wants to achieve, how my product is going to improve their life. And the more curious they are there, the better listeners they will become, because it's innate in them to want to learn. So you want that. You want that, you know, that mix of curiosity and good listening skills. Be persuasive. You know, not aggressive, persuasive. You know, let me show you why my product, although it's more expensive, is going to give you a better return on investment. You know, let me show you why you need us more than anybody else in the market. And they do this in an elegant and professional way. They also are great at validation. You know, salespeople love hearing themselves talk, but they don't love feedback, especially if it's not good. So a great salesperson is one that says, hey, I understood this is what you wanted. You know, this is what you explained to me, so I listened. You know, I'm trying to convince you that this is the best product, but I want to know if you're getting this, if you're seeing what I'm seeing. Because this is the best place to know when to prevent an objection. If I know beforehand what the customer is seeing eye to eye with me on and what he's not, now I can tackle what he's not so I can get him on board, and that's going to eliminate objections later on. So you want to make sure that they have that ability to validate. That's also going to be very important in the negotiation process. We want talent that is passionate about customers. You know, it's not that, oh, I like working with people. Well, I like working with monkeys and dogs and all kinds of things. I want people that are really passionate about their customers' success. So if you buy my product, I am committed to seeing you through. One of the things that we do here at Doble Group is that, you know, our account directors, they see the process through the end. So if there's any issues throughout the project implementation, they're engaged, they're involved. You know, what we promise during the sales pitch has to become a reality during the execution. And that's why I want them vested in that process as well. And if you have people that are passionate about customers, this is no extra work. This is what they live for because they want to see what came out of that sale, how they made a contribution. This is what really makes them feel valuable. Another thing that to me is crucial is trustworthiness. You know, I want sales executives that my customers can trust. You know, that they're going to tell you what they can do, but more importantly, they're going to tell you what they cannot do. And that doesn't mean they won't find a way around it. It just means that they're going to be honest and they're going to show a high level of integrity and they're going to have the highest standard of work ethic. Okay, these are people that even when they are not the best at selling or persuading, their trustworthiness far out extends those other character or trait flaws, because people know that they're going to take care of me and they're going to see this through and they're going to give me exactly what I want. And I want your salespeople to see themselves as consultants, not salesmen, not saleswomen, you know, a consultant. I advise people on my industry. So if I sell software, I advise people on how to automate their businesses. If I sell, you know, services, I want to tell my customers how they're going to reach the next level through the knowledge and the experience and the value that I bring to the table. So this is what you're looking. These are traits of a great sales professional. They are indispensable for you to reach that next level. And like I said before, don't be fooled. Talent is your number one asset. So even when you don't have all the technology and all the tools in the world, if you have great talent, you are much more likely to succeed. Okay, so let me look at questions. Yeah, I have a question here. In your experience, what are the key challenges in creating a world-class sales team? Okay, well, since that's a very general question, if you don't mind, Steve, I'll get back to that one later on towards the end of the presentation, because I think that is a more overarching question than what we're discussing at this point. So I got the question. I promise you I'll get back to it. Okay, the next thing we want to talk about here is people. Okay, we've talked about traits of a sales leader. We talked about, you know, the traits of a great sales professional. Don't forget that for you to maximize and unlock any talent's potential, they have to have a sense of mission. And I think Zig Ziglar said it best when he said, outstanding people have one thing in common, and that's an absolute sense of mission. For people to feel, you know, valued and worthy, they need to know what difference they're making. You need to make sure they understand that. If you give them that sense of mission, you're going to see uncommon results. And now let's talk about process. Okay, because we talked about leadership, we talked about, you know, talent, we talked about traits, we talked about aligning people with process, you know, that making sure that your strategy is enabled through your people, and that, you know, those initiatives have clear owners, and that you have a process to reach that, and you have the right metrics. But process can also be an inhibitor. So you want to make sure that you are using process as an enabler, not as an inhibitor. Each sales team culturally adopts a series of common practices, which is what you can define as your very own culture, that define how they interact with your customers and the steps that they follow to identify, qualify, and close a sale. And this is very, very important. Why? Because what is happening in your organization is there's already a culture there. Unless you've just started a new business and you're hiring people from zero and nobody's yet formed your organization, there is no culture. But if you already have a sales team, which is, I would say, 99.9% of the people attending this webinar, you know, you already have a culture. The question is, do you know what that culture is? And I can tell you that that culture is defined primarily by behavior. And this behavior is about how they act with each other, how they act with others, and more importantly, how they interact with your customers. So you want to make sure that process enables the culture that you're looking for. And in order for you to achieve that, there's a couple of things that we want to talk about. Number one is standardize best practices. But again, if you are not fostering collective intelligence, you might not have visibility of your best practices. So you want to make sure that you foster collective intelligence so the people that are doing great can tell the rest what they're doing great, and then you make that part of the day-to-day process. The second thing you want to look at is eliminate bureaucracy. Okay, anything that makes it harder is an inhibitor. I don't care how smart you think it is. Make it simple. Make it understandable. Make it clear. Make it easy to achieve. Okay, so if you have a very complex issue, break it down in pieces and attack it one at a time. You're going to see I have a quote on that at the end of this presentation. But it's important that you eliminate bureaucracy. The next thing is make sure you're providing your teams with the right set of tools. What warrior in their right mind would go to battle without the right weapons, right? It wouldn't be any different in your sales organization. So provide your team the right set of tools so they can actually go out there and win, because you are giving them the mechanisms to win. I love it in Jamaica. You know, there's something that I say all the time, which is, you know, you give me a basket to carry water. And it's true, you know, how many times do we not give our people the tools to do what they need to do? And I love that because it reminds me of exactly this. It's providing your team with the right set of tools. If you have a basket, doesn't matter how tightly knit and weaved it is, water's going to leak out. You need a bucket. And that's exactly what you want to do. Make sure your people have the CRM tools, that they have the learning tools, that they have the training tools, that they have the weapons to succeed. Next, you want to evaluate the effectiveness of your processes on a consistent basis, not once every 5 years. What's working, what's not working, making the necessary changes and adopting them. A lot of people think, oh, that was my idea, so I'm going to stick to it. Well, you know what? It might have been a great idea 3 months ago. It might not be a great idea today. So as you know, our human race has evolved. So does our business. So do our people. And so do our processes. So you want to make sure that you're evaluating that. And finally, make sure that you're updated with industry trends and innovations. You know, where are you in your industry? You know, are you leading or are you lagging? And if you're leading, you know, what are the things that you're leveraging to differentiate yourself? And if you're lagging, what are the things that you need to adopt and incorporate so you can be at the leaders' table? Okay, people like to do business with people that are winners, people that are, you know, offering value, that are ahead in what they do. Okay, so you want to make sure that you're staying updated with industry trends and that those trends are being baked into your processes. Because everything we're talking here, standardizing best practices, that's process. Eliminate bureaucracy, that's process. Providing your team with the tools to measure those processes, that's process. Evaluate if it's working, if your process is working, and adjust it, that's process. But you also want to know what's happening in your industry so you can update your processes and make them relevant to what your competitors are seeing success with, so you can be ahead of them and not behind them. Okay, and 5, we want to talk about closing the knowledge gap. Remember, we talked about knowledge at the beginning. Okay, the knowledge gap for me is important because you don't know what you don't know. And they say that ignorance is bliss, right? If I don't know what I don't know, I'm happy because I just don't know. Just like we say, no news is good news. And that's okay. However, I need my salespeople to be knowledgeable about the products, about the offers, and about the processes that they need to follow to be successful. And that's what I'm looking for here. So if you're looking to develop your organization, that development plan must embrace all aspects impacting your sales process and monitoring both the knowledge level, meaning I have and I know the information, with the confidence level, which is, and I am 100% sure. Because if not, what does that lead to? That leads to mistakes. If you have people that are confident but not knowledgeable, they're going to go out and they're going to do things that they shouldn't do. And what happens when the inverse is the case? That they have the knowledge but they don't have the confidence, they don't act. So that leads to paralysis. So neither one of those two is good. So you want to make sure when you develop your team and you're closing that knowledge gap, make sure that it's not only that I did the training, but I'm doing the reinforcement to build the confidence levels. And that pertains to products, to promotions, to key skills, whether that be negotiation, persuasion, sales processes and methodologies, you know, customer orientation. We talked about being, you know, customer passionate, consultative capabilities, going from transactional selling to value-based selling, and of course, making sure that you have the technology and the tools. You know, technology could be a CRM to automate the process and capture all the data that you need, as well as the documents to make presentations and understand industry better, to CPQ so that you can configure, price, and quote complex solutions, to battle cards, which is simply an index card that says, here are the pros and cons of each competitor. So if I have that in my pocket and an objection comes up, I can answer it. Why? Because I've closed the knowledge gap, and I'm confident because I have the tools. So tools can be as primitive as an index card and as sophisticated as a CRM or marketing automation tool. Regardless of which direction you take, what we encourage you to do is make sure that you are closing that gap by providing them with the knowledge and by reinforcing that knowledge to drive the levels of confidence that you need up. Okay, so if you focus on these 5 elements, I promise you, you're going to see some amazing results. But you can't just kind of go and do a presentation. Oh, guys, this is what we're going to do. You have to actually do it. Okay, and more on that coming up. So in my opinion, knowledge, real-time information, and consistent decision-making are essential to building an empowered and confident sales organization that consistently delivers results. Okay, they need to be knowledgeable. They have to have the tools to make the right information at the right time. And we have to have a mechanism that provides them with reassurance, because if we're making different decisions for the same problems every time, we are creating lack of confidence, we are creating indecision, we are creating confusion. But if you have these 3 elements blended in, which you can make a reality in your organization through the 5 tips that we've shared with you today, you're going to have an amazing sales organization that is execution-centric and that they actually deliver results. And 6, we want to talk about winning. And we want to talk about winning with celebration. They're synonymous, right? So celebrate. Winning is fun. You want to make sure that every time somebody achieves something, it doesn't matter how small it is, we're going to celebrate it. We're going to encourage it. We're going to give you the pat in the back. We may even give you a gift certificate. It doesn't matter. Just do something for people to know that they're valued. And I believe that healthy competition, timely recognition, and celebration are key factors to boosting productivity and building that world-class sales team. So when you do things right, celebrate them together. Be joined in this celebration, because that's going to not only boost morale, but strengthen the teamwork and make you a stronger organization overall. And this is the message I was talking about before. The secret of getting ahead is getting started. And this comes to the question that was asked before. In your experience, what are the key challenges in creating a world-class sales team, right? So, you know, the secret of getting ahead is getting started. And the secret to getting started is breaking your complex task into small, manageable tasks and starting on the first one. The key challenge faced by corporations today is that they have a disproportionate amount of work thrown in their laps, and that means a lot of it, with a disproportionate amount of resources to attack it. So as I often tell my customers, the reward for good work is more work. But you continue to have only 24 hours in a day, and you continue to have only the resources that you have. So why don't we, instead of being overwhelmed and stressed with all this responsibility and all this work, why don't we say, this is all fantastic, but this one is most important, and let me get started with this one and take it from there. So I hope you found this valuable. I believe that, you know, our mission, our goal, our purpose is to help customers, you know, achieve the next level. You know, that they have a better sales team, that they have a better marketing team, that they have a better customer service team. And this line of webinars is directed specifically at making those contributions. So if you have any ideas, anything you want to share with us, please let us know. Send it to info@doblegroup.com. Before we close out, I do want to tackle the questions. Actually, I do see quite a bit of additional questions here that were not here before. So I'm going to start with the first question, which I mentioned in the past. In your experience, what are the key challenges in creating a world-class sales team? I think the key challenges are, getting your head above water and shutting down the noise and start prioritizing. Okay, like I mentioned before, and like I showed on the previous graph, right? I mean, this tree is going to grow, but it's going to take time. All right, so I can't have the grown tree there tomorrow without planting the seed first, right? So that's what you want to do. Where are my priorities? What are the things that are going to have the most impact in my organization? And what are the things that I have to do to get there quicker? And then let me tackle that. And it doesn't mean I'm going to ignore the rest. It just means I may have to get to the rest later. So the number one challenge is prioritization. The number two challenge that I find is start with the right team. Get the right talent. Have the right salespeople. Have the right leadership. That's going to already make an impact for you. So you want to make sure that that's something that you're doing. You're prioritizing, but you're also getting enormously talented resources. I find that people want to change everything with the same resources, and that doesn't necessarily work all the time. Maybe the problem that you have is that you haven't moved on from the resources that you have to drive the transformation that you need in your business. So, be mindful of talent. And the third one is communication. That I would say is the third key challenge. I'm heading in this direction, but my sales leaders don't know that, and my salespeople have no clue. How do I make sure that communication is lined up all the way down as it pertains to people and what we're doing with people as far as talent, with processes, what are the practices that we're trying to put out there, and with strategy, why we're doing this, the greater purpose. So I think, if you ask me in my experience, those are the key challenges. Make sure that you're focused, number one. Make sure that you have the right talent, number two. And make sure that you are aligning everything together and communicating everything with everybody that has to be a part of it. You'll see that, that should deliver great results. Another question that we have here is, we have an established team. How do we get started incorporating some of these ideas? In other words, where do we start? I'm going to go back to the previous answer. Start where you know that the business is going to gain the most value. You might have 20 things to do, or you might have captured 5 ideas from this webinar. Pick the one that you know, okay, is going to be most relevant to your specific situation. So if your issue is leadership, then start there. If your issue is knowledge, then start there. If your issue is soft skills, then start there. Whatever your issue may be, you would be the best one to tell us. So start at that one thing and take it from there. Get started at the things that are simpler, and then break the complicated things into things that are simpler, assign owners to them, track them till they get completed. So start with the most impactful initiatives, the most impactful ideas. Because once you do that and you start moving the needle, what's going to happen is your next ideas are going to be adopted a lot quicker. And everybody would already be used to that process. And remember, when you do that, bear in mind that there is a process that you want to follow, which, yep, it's right here. Make sure that you're following this, that there is a strategy, that the initiative is clearly outlined, that there's a process to get there, that there's a way to measure it, that you're recognizing, evaluating it, and improving it. So that's going to be absolutely important. Wow, 3 more questions. Excellent. So how do you balance the knowledge gap with the overwhelming tasks that our teams are already dealing with? So that's what I mentioned before as well, right? And I guess this person is just saying, yeah, that sounds great, but how do we we have all these things to do, and now how do we get people out so they can train? That's an excellent question. So number one is, look at gamification. I mean, and that's a very self-serving answer, by the way, because in full disclosure, we represent a great product called Axonify, which is for this. But gamification is fantastic, because instead of you taking your people out for a full day of training, what you're doing is you're telling them, spend 5 minutes on your mobile app, because every 5 minutes that you spend every day is going to give you knowledge. And then that tool specifically measures how many of those questions you get right, but it also measures how confident you were about that answer before you gave it. So that's going to drive the mastery that you want. And for me, that is one of the most effective ways of both teaching and reinforcing knowledge in your organization. The other way that we feel is really useful is videos. You know, you can't take your team out, but you know what you can do is you can definitely do 2-minute, 5-minute, no more than 10-minute videos on particular topics that you know that there's a gap in knowledge. So it's going to be impossible for you to sit down with everybody, especially if you have a large organization. So go ahead, do a video, put a video library out there, choose topics that you know people need to learn about, and tackle it that way. I think gamification and short videos are the most effective non-traditional ways of closing that knowledge gap, despite the overwhelming task. Why? Because they take very little time. You know, they take 5 minutes, at the most 10 minutes a day, and that should be enough. And everybody can find that amount of time. Everything else is an excuse. Everybody can afford 5 minutes. What they may not be able to afford is 3 hours. And they certainly may not have the time for a full day out in training. So consider those options. I think they're phenomenal tools for you to close that gap. The next question, how do we motivate team when deals are lost? Well, that's an interesting question. You know, I tell my people the worst thing you can do when you lose a business is not learn from it. So I actually take comfort in saying, hey, we lost it, but the question is not really about dwelling on the fact that we lost it, but rather what we could have done differently or better and why we lost it. And let's make sure we incorporate that. So use it as a learning moment, use it as a coaching moment, and use it as a motivation. And hey, you know, you've done so many other great deals, you know, don't let this get you down. You know, let's keep working at it. Let's keep improving these key things that we know that, you know, we could have done differently. And actually, let's use that collective intelligence approach, share it with the rest of the team. There's no shame in losing a deal. There's a shame in not wanting to do better. In other words, not losing it again for the same reasons. So share that so that other people don't make the same mistake. And the last question here is, what's the best approach to internal coaching? So, you know, the best approach to internal coaching is getting started. Some people feel, well, I'm not a great coach. I haven't been trained to be a coach. I don't have a coach myself. And that's a shame. You know, in the U.S., there's a huge movement that, you know, everybody, doesn't matter what level you're at, everybody should have a mentor and everybody should mentor somebody else. You know, and like I said, you know, how do you do that? You do that by coaching and by guiding. So, you know, you have 10 people in your sales organization. Start by saying every month we're going to spend, you know, an hour at 4 o'clock on a Friday or maybe a Monday. It's up to your culture, you know, what works best for your team. And we're going to talk about the things that we're doing well, and we'll talk about the things that we ought to be doing better. And get started. You'll surprise yourself. Just the fact that you've, you know, had the initiative tells your people that you care. So have that conversation, see where it takes you, and if you need help, ask your supervisor, your sales leader, your CEO, you know, I'm getting this challenge a lot. How do you recommend I do this? And before you know it, they're coaching you. And now you're creating this coaching culture, which is really about making everybody else in the organization better. So I think that's about right. We have 30 seconds left before our time's up. I'm not sure if there's any other questions, but if there is no other question, we will leave you with a poll for you to tell us, you know, what are the main, sorry, that's not it, what topics would interest you in our future webinars. So we have this poll up. We ask you to take a look at that poll, and if you won't mind, please tell us, you know, and what we'll do is we will put those webinars in our agenda and include them for the next sessions. Here, just to kind of reinforce while you do that poll, you know, at Doble Group, we can help you with training, coaching, commercial strategy, and process consulting, and then, of course, configuring, developing, integrating, and supporting all these fantastic tools like CRM and gamification for learning, as well as custom applications for your business. So we thank you for the opportunity to share our thoughts with you. And we hope that you will complete the poll so that we can address those issues in our future webinars. Thank you very much, and please continue to stay in touch through Twitter, Facebook, Google+, LinkedIn, YouTube, or SlideShare, whichever you prefer. We would be delighted to engage with you at a personal or even at a social media level. And I see that, wow, quite a bit of people answered the poll, so I appreciate that. Thank you very much. We will be taking into account your answers, and you will be hearing from us regarding these webinars in the future. So have a great rest of your day, and we look forward to seeing you again in our next webinar.